Hello everyone and welcome to Overwatch On Point, Episode 2, hosted by Lemon Kiwi and myself. How you doing today?
Good. Super pumped. I know there's a ton going on today and yesterday and every day, including next week. So we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, last week's games were pretty exciting, but actually just a ton of stuff happening behind the scenes. We're going to start today's show talking about roster changes and role changes throughout the league, not just players, but management and staff as well. First up, go ahead.
Crazy to see. It's just crazy to see kind of this stuff happening at the end of the stage. Like you thought maybe during the off season was where you're going to see kind of roster mania, and when we say role change, we also mean maybe players that are on a certain role like DPS or maybe like tank or even any other role, kind of switching things up during this 2-2 season.
Yeah, so first up, Blaze on Uprising. Is it Blaze or Blaze? I really am not 100%
like
sure.
Blase. Yeah. He had the little accent on the end here.
Okay, that's good. Blase was apparently unhappy on off-tank. He's normally a DPS player, and apparently other players have also been complaining about just the effects of the 2-2-2 role change in Overwatch League is going to shuffle some players around. What are your thoughts on, should they complain at all? They still get to play. I mean, that's where I would be sitting.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, like Blase had that deleted tweet. I think everyone, maybe you guys saw it. And also, how's it going, Logan? See you guys in chat. He said, get me off this hero Lamau kind of thing. And maybe I kind of feel for it, right? Like you sign up for a sport, let's say you're center field in whatever sport, you're expected to play center field the whole time. But now let's say they move you as goalie, and that's maybe a whole different other ball game. To kind of learn something completely different, but esports is not sports, and I guess in the player way that you should be able to adapt to whatever you're asked to do. And Blase, it's kind of different when maybe some DPS were forced to play Brig all season. Like that was horrible because it wasn't testing their mechanics, it wasn't testing their brain power. But Blase, DPS player, he's amazing. Now going to something like a Diva, I think he's mostly been playing Diva. It's still mechanically demanding. He still has an impact on the game. Maybe he's unhappy just because playing against a Mei on off tank is super horrible.
Sure.
But it's not as bad as Brig Jail, right?
I agree. I think just having a DPS on a character that just swings, a mace instead of at least aiming at things is completely different. Like Diva, I love playing DPS, but when I would play tanks, Diva still felt like I was getting a lot done and I was doing things that some dummy wouldn't be able to do. Mobility is still extremely important on a character like Diva, for example. Unlike, Brigitte, who's basically just running in straight lines straight at people or just hanging back, whichever of the two. So, yeah, I think if I'm in that player's position and, maybe I don't get to play Genji or McCree every game, but at least I'm still in there fragging. Like, that's what's important.
I'm still doing something.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just talked to another DPS player, Water. He's from Contenders, but I think that this same situation is following a lot of DPS players of people who are maybe trained to play Widow and Pharah, these really explosive rules. Now they're stuck in Mei jail. So instead of, Brig jail, which we already talked about how maybe monotonous that was, they're now stuck in Mei jail where, at least, again, it's more mechanically demanding. You still have a right click that's fairly tricky.
True. And
you have an impact as setting a winning condition with the blizzards and stuff. But there's a lot of DPS players that are now stuck on permanent on Mei because that's now meta, and they're not happy with that. So it's tough to be like, are they just whining, or is this genuinely like you need to have variety in this game for these players not to get burnt out?
It's interesting because, again, like this change happened in the last stage of the season. A lot of teams were not, they had no way to prepare for this when they were building their rosters at the beginning of the season. So I really do expect a lot more players to be shuffled around as a result of the 2-2-2 more than we've seen already. So if I were in that player's shoes, I would just, again, keep your options open because there's only going to be 2 DPS players for every team. And if they want you to still play any character, Mei, Diva, whoever it is, count your blessings, I think is where I sit. But that's Blase not being the only person to switch around roles this week. Actually, Rascal subbed in for Moth to play support. And Rascal is a person I immediately think of as a top DPS player. And Moth, again, is like a support player I've always had respect for. So that was kind of a surprising one.
That was weird. Yeah, we had to go dig on what map that was. It was if you guys saw the last Shock match, it was in they were already up 3-0. They brought in Rascal on the fourth map for support. So we've seen already DPS kind of have to play Brig. We've seen DPS have to play off tank, but now we're seeing DPS like actually playing a real support character, and he was playing BAP. They still ended up winning 4-0, but that was a big question mark as to why that happened, but it was maybe I don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
But it was pretty funny.
Either Moth wanted to take a nap or Rascal was just like, "Yo, let me try. I really just let me in."
I want a BAP.
Yeah, we're already ahead. Let's see how I do on this. But I would not expect to see that in playoff contention matches. They've already locked top 6. They know they can't pass the Titans for that top seed. So this is time for them to try and experiment, or maybe just let Moth have a nap. I don't know. But either way, Mickey also came in for the first time in, as you say, over a year. I had not realized that they had not used him all season long.
I can't believe it was that long either, because I'm a huge Mickey fan, and everyone's been noticing, there's some people on the field that have been on the bench for the long time, but it was actually said that it was a whole year that Mickey hasn't played, like some title stage like ages ago.
Jeez.
And so it was his first map playing. It was like a map 4. Fuel were already losing 3-0 to the Charge. So I guess, yay, the as of Vaz likes to say, the pity map.
Sure.
Unfortunately, Mickey came in and, just doing his thing. They still lost, but then that pause that happened was interesting.
Yeah, unfortunate for Mickey. Basically, it's like, finally I get to, sit in this chair on stage again, and now I get to sit here for a long time because the server was hanging. Nobody was able to even move around or switch characters, things like that. So that was a bit of a rough spot for Mickey. Hopefully, maybe they'll use him again this week. We know that the Fuel are already eliminated from playoff contention, so perhaps he'll get some more time on stage. We do have one player, I guess you could call it a trade or being called up. That's Teasy going to the Vancouver Titans, and I think you've got some experience, casting and watching him a bit.
Yeah, that's really cool to see Tizzy go up to the Titans. He had a weird season on GZA. This was a Contenders China team. They kind of flopped. This is where Tizzy and Nero played together. Again, they looked good on paper, but just kind of, I think they got relegated. And this was an academy team in Contenders China, so they were supposed to be amazing and then weren't. But Tizzy was also on XL2 when they were good, second place in Contenders NA. So main tank role, super in demand at all times in the Overwatch League, and for Tizzy to kind of join his former teammates of Runaway on the Titans, I think this was kind of meant to be.
It's great for him, but I do question, just from the Titans standpoint, it's like, okay, he's available. Okay, he's, obviously proven himself. He does have some chemistry with the team that we already have, but we're in 2-2-2, and we already have 3 tanks. We have Bumper and Janu, who play the vast majority of the maps, and then they have Sumin Su, who played just last week, primarily on Zarya. So now they have a 4th tank, and is that too many tanks for playoffs? It just seems like weird timing to me to be after the roll lock and now right before playoffs. Like, where is Tizzy going to fit in? Titans do have a match this week against Shock. We were thinking maybe this is like a tryout period for him against a really strong team. What do you think?
Maybe they're also planning for their some off-season trades, like getting the good players early, and maybe they're thinking about getting rid of some tanks. But yeah, like having that many tanks is definitely not necessary, especially when you're not in a 3-tank meta. You're forced to only play 2. But maybe it's a situation where Bumper could go to another role, or Tizzy maybe goes to another role. He's only played like tank roles, so I don't imagine that to be the case. But maybe it's just scooping up the good players and getting ready for the off-season. I don't expect him to play anytime soon. I'm not sure if he appeared in the last match, but I don't expect him to appear anytime soon.
I suppose increasing your options is still a safe bet for the Titans. They know they have a lot of good players already, and this gives them even more flexibility. I think it was an old StarCraft 2 saying that when you're ahead, get more ahead. That's seems to be Titan's strategy here.
True.
Yeah, so that's the best time to capitalize on it, is when you're on top. And I think everybody wants to play for the Titans after the monster season that they've had this year.
Sure.
So now, moving on from just players, we actually have some management and coaching moves behind the scene. Ballin, Anna Lynn, who was the Gladiators director of social media. So I really was a big fan of Gladiators social media, including all of the This Is Gladiators or This Is Sports Center sort of side parallel we had the Big Geese last week, and before that, Surefour was like the director of anime or something like that, just ranking the top animes for the Gladiators, stuff like that. I really enjoyed those series. And Ballin also, you may recognize as the GM for the Team USA World Cup team, I think last year and this year. She did get voted in this year, right? I just want to double check that.
Yeah, she's still in this year. And it just speaks to, obviously, I don't know her personally, but just kind of seeing the evidence of even when she was competing for GM for Team USA, which is the most competitive position probably besides the coach, to see her kind of beat everyone out is insane. Like, all the pros were supporting her and had tons of good things to say about her as a GM role. She's clearly had experience on Team USA and got it twice in a row. So obviously she didn't flop the first time and is going to do a great job this year again. So it's really awesome to see that not only is she good on the management and the creativity side, but she's getting a test to go and to the Justice now that they're looking good too. She kind of didn't have to start where they were a mess at the beginning. She's kind of coming in at their good point. So I'm really excited for her.
That is actually, yeah, that's a great point to make as well. As the Justice were one of the first teams actually eliminated from playoff contention just with not the best record, we can say. And then this stage kind of snapped and we're beating everybody, including the Titans. That was another big unexpected match. Justice did just have their streak snapped for the stage, but again, they're looking better than ever. And Anna Lynn, I actually met her in a quick play match randomly
cool.
before all this, before she had anything to do with Overwatch League. And we had a mutual friend. She was in beautician, like cosmetology. School before all the Overwatch stuff. So I've actually just been watching her grow and do all this awesome stuff that I wish I could be doing. And I'm just totally jealous. Annalyn, if you see this, congratulations again. Justice GM is a huge opportunity for her. And I think they will benefit from it. And next, finally, the last roster or role change that we have to talk about today is Kai, who has been around forever, actually. Cloud9 mainstay back in the years when I was casting a bunch, and obviously did not really go for the player role in Overwatch League. He started coaching and did bounce around a little bit, most recently as the coach of Paris Eternal. He says now that he hasn't actually left the Eternal, but he's already thinking about options for next year.
I feel like a lot of people don't know what he does behind the scenes, including myself, right?
Sure.
And a lot of people have placed the blame on him. He's been kind of the face of a lot of teams he's been on, and the teams he's been on haven't always been successful. I'm trying to be polite here, and he's been the one on the forefront of that blame. And Paris Eternal, once again, are one of those teams that haven't seen the tremendous success that maybe a lot of people thought they were going to have with this European roster. And I think he and the team had this great idea with this European roster. Their social media, everything around them seems well constructed, but the results just aren't reflecting that. And maybe he's thinking he doesn't want to take the flag. He wants to kind of go in another direction. I don't know if it'll still be coaching or managing, what it'll be, but the results haven't always reflected what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and that kind of boils down to how much of it is the coaches, how much of it is the players, how much of it is the million other factors, right? His resume is still impressive, coaching multiple Overwatch League teams, even if they weren't top of the league. Eternal right now are sitting at 14 out of 20 over the course of the whole season, which isn't that far off top 12. I mean, they are kind of just narrowly missing the mark this season, but are already eliminated from playoffs. Kai, again, I think blame Kai was a hashtag for a long time just with the fuel, but that's pretty unexpected. The fuel did not have the first season that many people would have expected, regardless of who was coaching them. So maybe it's a bit of Kai, a bit of the players, a bit of everything, but hopefully he does land somewhere on his feet. And that is going to wrap it up just for the various role changes that all happened this week. We could see another slew of, 5 or 6 weird player switches or management's coaches leaving here and there. But also this week we had Sigma hitting the live servers. And pro players obviously have a lot of thoughts on a new character being added. And the fact that he came at the same time where 222 is starting to become sort of the default, the mainstay, is adding another tank to the game going to matter? Is Sigma even going to get played? Is he good enough? Is he better than your current options, which we see a lot of Reinhardt, D.Va, Zarya still? What do you think about Mr. Sigma?
He has a really impressive kit as you just look at him, kind of having this. He's combining so many powerful abilities into one. You have kind of this graviton looking ultimate,
Hmm.
throws everybody up into the air, slams them down. May not be like an insta kill type of ultimate, depending on the height that you're pulling them up at, but more it could be setting up for different things. We've seen clips from people using that ultimate to make the team C9 off the cart or off the point, some people setting up with a self-destruct or a deadeye. I think it's more of one of those, again, like a graviton where you combine it with another ultimate. So that in itself can introduce a lot of amazing things for how he can be used with other heroes. And then he's kind of like a matrix that gives him extra health, and he's able to eat ultimates, although Jeff Kaplan said that wasn't really supposed to be
What?
intended,
That's
or
not good.
maybe uh, or I'm not sure if he was joking or not, but yes, he can eat ultimates, and his damage is pretty good. We had some pros at high level play him and showing that you can get 4 or 5Ks with this tank hero. So although some people complain that his left click's a little bit, the fire rate in itself is a little bit low or needs to be worked on, his kit is really impressive and has a really high skill ceiling where people that are amazing with him will just wreck faces.
I agree. He does. The whole kit reads very powerful. I remember when he was first introduced and they were going through the abilities video, and you have like YouTubers checking him out in the training rooms and stuff like that. They're like, hey, check this out. He can basically fly and ult an entire control point, like on Ilios or something like that. He can essentially ult the entire range of whoever's standing on the point. And that just seems really powerful, not just for control maps, but also assault. Similar to a graviton, like you say, it doesn't bunch them all up, but it does hit everything. And essentially, you can have any DPS, Reaper being extremely popular right now, follow up with a Death Blossom while they're unable to move. It just seems like it could have the potential, if you're going for more of a offensive approach. He definitely seems more offensive than defensive to me, just with the ability to fling everyone in the air on the way in. So definitely keep your eyes open for Sigma. I'm not sure. Do you know for sure if he's going to be available in the playoffs?
Oh, I doubt it.
Okay, yeah. That's,
I actually don't know what patch playoffs is going to be, and I assume the same thing, but we'll find out. I'm sure they'll announce it.
yeah, and if they have already, that's my bad. Just not 100% sure if Sigma will be available, but it does make sense that they would not use him just because he is a bit untested and all that business. They probably still need to balance him a bit. And then the other bit besides Sigma is Roll Queue actually has hit live servers for testing, at least, the 222 roll locks. And, well, the double-edged sword of being able to play what you want and then waiting forever to do it has reared its ugly head. So what are your thoughts on, these super long queue times that DPS, high-level DPS players have been moaning about this week?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of laughing before the podcast started of everyone's been hoping to have better quality games in ranked. That's been kind of the biggest hurdle everyone's been hoping would get improved on. And there's people have said, I would want to wait longer for higher quality games, but maybe people didn't expect 60-minute or, very, very long queues like that. So it maybe comes down to maybe there's some more algorithm stuff they need to fix, because even that seems kind of crazy. Maybe not everyone needs to be a DPS player. Maybe this is kind of nudging some people to flex to support, hint, hint. And maybe it just also needs to be Overwatch gives people something to do during that wait time. Maybe like a firing range. I know Call of Duty has some kind of practice range you can do, or even just workshop stuff you can do. But the whole scrimmage thing isn't very good. So, or at least not a lot of players spawn in it for it to be actually practice worthy. So just need something to do while you're waiting.
I hear that. I used to load up Tetris and Trackmania and some other like kind of browser size games. And you don't want to do that. That's a necessity. You'd rather obviously just fire into a game and start fragging as much as you can. Hello to It's Ducky saying he remembers when I casted some of his games. I guess that was referencing the Kai bit back in the old 2016 days. And then Logan saying, I have super quick queue times as a tank. No problems here. Well, we can queue together so that I can just play Pharah. Also taking applications for any Mercy mains that want to tag along and help me play faster games. Totally fine with that. But I think you're right. Absolutely, Jen, that people just learn to play some tanks and some supports. I mean, there are some fraggers out there, Zenyatta and Baptiste, are great.
But they have to fix the SR with that, because
True.
there's a kind of a buggish thing right now that if you're a high level tank player and you queue a support, you're going to be put in your high level games when you're probably a bronze support. Like for example, like Hard Blue plays a ton of tank. Like he was waiting like 30 minutes plus to queue his tank at a high level, and then he queued a support. And Heart Blue's not really a support player. No one flame me, but he has said himself he's like uncomfortable in the role. So then he queues a support in like a GM game, but he like has a hard time. So now you have that player who's maybe more of a Diamond Masters level playing in your GM game, and that's where flexing on those other roles. Now you need to adjust the SR for those, and not just automatically be placed in your GM role.
I hear that. Yeah, definitely need to calibrate everything. And this is, to Blizzard's credit and Overwatch's credit, they are calling it like a test season for the role queue. And they actually had some issues with the quick play role queue as well that they've been working on. So hopefully this is just a big bump on the way to, smoother sailing on the way in. And I think in the end, hopefully it will get everyone where they want to be, reasonable times, actually playing characters that you want to play and are skilled at, and not, I think it's already eliminated the fact where sometimes you have 6 DPS players in a game and someone has to fill a support or you just lose. I feel like there is still some trade-off there, and Blizzard has the tools to be able to smooth it out, hopefully. But moving on from these news items, we actually have some great matches last week. So I think we can talk a little bit about some of the more surprising results. Last week we had the Dragons, who I thought were going to actually muster up and actually make the playoffs. They actually ended up losing both of their matches that I predicted them to win last week. Paris Eternal actually being kind of the surprise there by beating the Dragons. Any thoughts on Dragons or Eternal in that regard?
It's Eternal are looking better and better as the stage kind of ends. It might be too little too late, but yeah, we were kind of expecting Dragons to pull that off, but hey, Eternal are kind of climbing back.
Yeah, Eternal, if we look at just the total playoff picture right now, they did just barely get eliminated again. The only couple of teams that are not locked for playoffs or eliminated for playoffs right now are the Chengdu Hunters and the Valiant, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Also, last week we had Houston taking the Chengdu Hunters to a Game 5, and that actually kind of hurt the Hunters because Hunters don't play this week, and they're on the cusp. They are right above the fold right now for making the playoffs, but the Valiant have a chance to play upset this week. Houston, have not looked super great this stage. So the fact that they did push a Korean squad to a Game 5 is pretty impressive, at least.
Yeah, Hunters are in this weird situation where they're good, but they're kind of trying to get away from the meta right now. They're not always playing May Reaper, like they're playing a tons of Pharah, and they're playing tons of Widow, and even Doomfist and Sombra, and kind of anything but the May Reaper, which has kind of costed them some maps against Houston. And Houston, getting away from their internal problems that were happening and just trying to finish the season out strong.
Yeah, and Hunters could be in a tiebreak situation where map differential comes into play. So losing any maps to Houston is actually troublesome for them. And finally, last week, Spitfire versus Rain is kind of a twofold story. Spitfire, I would have obviously expected to, I think, beat Rain, but Rain actually had just 2 fantastic matches last week. They 4-0'd the Spitfire. Remember, last year's champions. Spitfire are now basically middle of the road. If I take a look at the rankings again, they're in 6th, but their record is 16-12. That's not nearly as hot as they were last year. And Rain actually snapped Justice's streak earlier in the week, then 4-0'd Spitfire, so they are looking red hot going into this week's matches.
Yeah, I thought that Rain match was going to be slightly closer. It's not that Spitfire are just on a hot streak right now. They're definitely more middle of the pack than they were in previous stages, but they usually are able to take a map from good teams like this. So Rain just had an amazing last week.
Yeah, I think Dogman and I believe it's it's not FDR. FGR?
FRD.
FRD.
Yeah,
yes, sorry. FRD and Dogman were getting a lot of props from the Overwatch League talent team this week, just based on the improvements that they've seen recently. Dogman specifically, a lot of people were not too concerned about him. They thought that he maybe shouldn't even be in the Overwatch League, but he is just driven and definitely has improved over the course of the season, getting more comfortable with teammates, maybe just getting more comfortable with playing on the big stage, stuff like that. But Reign are just looking super good, and they do play again twice in this upcoming week against Fuel and Uprising. So I have a feeling Reign are going to finish the season strong here with a couple of kind of easier matches than they just faced this past week. So they're looking pretty good moving into the playoffs. There are two sort of matches, I think, this week that warrant mentioning. That's the Shock versus the Titans, I think, is kind of an interesting one. But they'll be playing at a different venue this time, not the Overwatch League studio. Do you want to talk a bit more about where they're going?
Yes, I mean, another homestand next weekend, everyone. If you're in the Cali, LA area, it's the Kit Kat Rivalry weekend.
Awesome.
Where this is kind of for the Valiant, hosting for the Valiant. So they have like dunk tanks. They're doing charity stuff, and they're sponsored by Kit Kat, which is kind of the best chocolate. So I'm super excited for that weekend. I unfortunately won't be able to go, so I'll be watching at home. But like you said, the ultimate match to watch is the Shock and the Titans. And also, I'm kind of hyped to see Gladiators and Valiant, the Battle of LA happening in LA. That's gonna be the hypest match.
Absolutely. And Valiant are in that very interesting position. If you didn't know already, they are 13th place right now. Only 12 teams get to play in the playoffs, but the Hunters right above them are done for the season. They're sitting at 13 and 15, the Hunters. Valiant are currently at 12 and 14. If they win even one match, their map differential is going to get them through to the playoffs, and the Hunters will have to take a seat and wait till next year. Valiant actually have two opportunities to do that, not only against the Gladiators, which, again, battle for LA. I believe the Gladiators came out on top last time. Are they the reigning Battle of LA? Either way,
I want to say, I'd have to double check. That's kind of, it feels long ago.
It was last year, what we're referencing here. So really not too pertinent for, this year's results. But you're right, they're doing the dunk tank and all that. We saw on Twitter, if you check out the Valiant Twitter, you can see the dunk tank has like a Gladiators logo on the target that you're supposed to hit with the ball to dunk, your favorite players. They're going to be picking super fans from each team at these matches. So that could be you. It could be basically anyone getting a chance to dunk or be dunked, actually, as part of this charity event. They said that they'll be donating money to the winners of various fan competitions, things like that. And I believe they said that the winning teams will also be receiving a year of Kit Kat, which you just said was one of the best chocolates. I'm inclined to agree.
Amazing.
Yeah. Snickers would maybe be one of my higher ones. Snickers, if you're out there listening, also maybe check out Overwatch League fan competitions. Yeah. And then, so they have the Valiant versus Gladiators, and finally Shock versus Valiant. So Shock are in an interesting position. They have to face the Titans earlier in the week and Valiant later in the week. Shock are basically already set. They don't have to do the play-in. They're already top 6. They can't pass the Titans. So both of these matches, we could see some weird stuff. We could see things like supports getting subbed around for DPS players or what have you. Or they could treat it as super serious playoff practice. We don't really know what to expect. And Valiant, their playoff hopes rest on Shock in some degree. So that's kind of an interesting situation for these final matches.
I also wonder, just for the homestand, kind of the mentality of it, you have this huge crowd cheering for you. All the fans are there for you. I'm wondering if there's kind of like that home field advantage. I know sports kind of has that thing that they like to think about. Some teams play better at home. Some teams play better and not as well away. So although Shock and Valiant are facing each other, like I wonder if Valiant is going to, because confidence also translates a lot to how well you can play, feeling confident, getting hyped up. Sometimes it's just kind of like that push that Valiant could need to take a map. Maybe a lot of people would say Shock 4-0 Valiant, but I'm kind of giving maybe a map, maybe 2, depending on how Valiant feel during that series when all the fans are like screaming.
Yeah, we've got Big Man on Campus 88 in the chat reiterating home field advantage. That's what you're looking for. Absolutely. I do think that it will make a big difference because the vast majority of the people there are going to say, finally, this is my team. This is my opportunity to go to an event. Maybe if they don't live close enough to the Overwatch League studio, they have rare opportunities to actually get to see these matches, and they've probably, just I know if there was a Las Vegas team, I would make an extra effort to go to the Las Vegas team's homestand just because now we have,
If only we had a team.
yeah, well,
We still don't have a team.
could happen. It could happen. There's,
One day.
definitely going to be more seasons of Overwatch League. So maybe we'll get some big casino investor involved. That would be pretty dope. But yeah, I think home field advantage, they're going to be screaming louder. There's going to be more of them. There's going to be your team's colors and the audience, just glancing out from the stage. I'm sure you're going to see a lot more support than you would.
And there's booing too.
Oh,
Like I went to
absolutely.
the Dallas one and there's crazy booing. And it's maybe there's people like Dogman who are like, yeah,
bring
let's
it,
hear
hate
let's
me.
hear it.
Yeah.
Bring it. Yeah, we love the haters. But I think maybe there's genuinely some people that get affected by that. And I could definitely see like Shock getting, I guess like Shock, like San Francisco's kind of in that part of the world. So maybe there's going to be a lot of Shock fans too, now that I think about it. So I actually don't know. That's going to be a fun event though.
Yeah, not too big of a stretch to expect Shock fans to show up as well, just because Shock also is just incredibly good, and bandwagoners are a thing sometimes.
For sure.
But booing, that's an interesting point that you bring up, because I've been to a whole bunch of esports events, and in things like individual esports like StarCraft or fighting games, stuff like that, you don't really see the booing too much. But when you have teams slapped with a city across their logo, I think you definitely
It changes things.
get a bit rowdier.
World Cup too.
Yeah.
Team USA versus Team Canada, to, South Korea versus the world. Like for some reason, if you slap a country or a city, all of a sudden it's my team.
Exactly.
This is my country. This is my zone. And no matter if the players are actually from the city or not, it's like a whole new rivalry has been created.
Yeah, and I'm sure Overwatch League loves to hear us say that, because that is kind of the premise they're building the whole franchising thing, teams owning other teams but having
It's
to change the
working.
name just to have a city and a unique brand to match the city, things like that are all working toward Overwatch League's favor. And Big Man on Campus also saying the Midwest is still looking for a team, so I feel ya. St. Louis, Chicago, there are big markets in the Midwest that could certainly benefit. You're not wrong there, Big Man on Campus. So other than that, yeah, Shock versus Titans is another weird one where it's like both teams have already gotten through. Neither of them are the homestand team, but they, are they trying to just finish as the number one team of the 2019 season, or do they try out TZ? Do they try out just various things that they wouldn't otherwise because they're comfortable already?
Seattle left out in the dark. I feel you, Vegas. Yeah, Logan. Some cities you would think would expect. I'm glad at least Canada got Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
And we technically have Montreal Rebellion. Kind of waiting for Toronto Defiant.
Yeah.
I'm so stupid. I forgot about. I was like, wait, Toronto? Yeah, Toronto. But yeah, waiting for a Vegas team. We already got the arena, but
Oh my.
I've already argued about which cities should have a team like before this expansion happened, which maybe more teams will come at the end. But to address your Shock Titans thing, that I kind of gave 3 tiers to Shock, just again for that home-ish field advantage of having maybe more Shock fans there. But that'll be kind of the match to kind of flex the number one. Maybe not like the number one in standings, but just maybe number one in general.
Right, just kind of an undisputed going to the playoffs. I think it would be good. It would be good for either team, Shock or Titans, whoever comes out on top, to ride that sort of momentum and be like, okay, guys, we're looking as good as we can. Playoffs are in only a couple of weeks. I believe August 30th is the beginning of that stretch, but that's not too far away. That's actually very, very close. So these teams need to stay in form and do their best, I think, this week. And there are a lot of other teams that could still be vying for sort of top 6 potential, try to skip that play-in. That's Reign, Dynasty, and Fusion are actually the closest to the cusp there. Spark, Gladiators, and Spitfire are right above that line, so they're going to try to do their best not to lose any unnecessary maps as well. But that's pretty much it for this week's sort of previews. I think the homestand is going to add, some uniqueness to the final games of the regular season. I can't reiterate this enough. We're basically at the end of the line here for 2019. Only have the playoffs left. A bunch of teams will be entering the offseason and trying to figure out what they're going to do for next year. I also want to give credit to Jen. We actually did our predictions for last week's games, and she did get more matches right than me. You went 11-3,
I did?
and I went 10-4. The very last straw, the very last straw was the Spitfire Reign. You actually called Reign beating Spitfire 3-2. I had Spitfire taking it just because I thought they were just a mismatch. But it came down to that last match on the last day. But This week,
tough one to call.
This week we're pretty aligned. You've got Shock over Titans. I have Titans over Shock, but every other match, I think we've got the same mindset. So
this felt really much easier to call. Yeah, it's really only the Gladiators Valiant match and the Shock Titans that are kind of a toss-up. Everything I kind of wrote as 4-0s and 3-1s-ish. It kind of with some chance of a map. Control maps, anything can happen. But yeah, it's also kind of sad that there's no stage 4 playoffs, that you don't get to see kind of Justice like maybe win a stage when this is finally the stage that they're doing well on. But it's still cool that they had a good stage. I think they're still happy with themselves. And now we can just focus on playoffs and all that effort from all those stages now. This is where it's going to wind down to.
Right. And Justice at least do have the note of being not last anymore, because Mayhem, they have now passed the Mayhem in the full season rankings. Justice are at 19, Mayhem at 20. And actually, Defiant and Uprising both have the same record as Justice. So you could even consider them 17th place instead of 20th. So progress is good.
True.
Yeah. Mayhem still need to follow Justice's example, it looks like. But otherwise, congrats to Justice for turning things around here at the end of the season. But that is basically going to wrap the show for this week. Jen, were there any other topics or any other predictions or anything like that?
No. Anybody in chat who's going to the Rivalry weekend, if you're listening on iTunes, on Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you are, hope you have an amazing weekend. And if not, well, you can kind of catch us here and we'll talk about what happened, whether you were at home watching or whether you were there.
Yeah, and we appreciate the follows here on twitch.tv/Prediction Esports. That's Prediction with 2 E's. You can also search Prediction with 2 E's on iTunes or Overwatch on Point to find us there. Prediction also has Call of Duty, Smash Brothers, and some other shows as well. If you're just a fan of esports in general, definitely check all those out. But that will wrap up Overwatch on Point episode 2 here. Thanks very much, Lemon Kiwi, again, for being an awesome host, talking about all these awesome topics.
Thank you.
And let's see how this final week of Overwatch League 2019 goes. See you later, folks.
Bye.